Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. The thumbnail for this is actually a clip. It's a bit obscure, but it's actually a clip. I'll put the clip in the description below. It's actually from I believe it's a TV series, Netflix or something, sci-fi. It might have moved over to Amazon. I think it was on sci-fi and then it went to Amazon, or it was on Amazon and went to Apple or something, whatever. It's called The Man in the High Castle. Now, it's based on a book by Philip K. Dick, which I can't recommend enough. I love the book. The series was okay. It was pretty good. I liked the first season because it kind of more closely tracked the book. As it goes on, it starts to kind of move away from sort of the source material more and more, but the underlying premise is there. It's an alternative universe where sort of the Axis powers won the Second World War. In this particular scene, it's basically a situation where, I'll let you watch the scene. I'll just leave it at that. But there's a line in there, and the scene is not completely, in fact, it is not analogous to this situation regarding gambling. But the line that I paraphrased to make the thumbnail, I think, is very pertinent, the notion. And what am I talking about here? Well, I've been thinking more and more about this gambling thing. And it hit me the other night. I had an almost epiphany. There was a case when I was in law school, constitutional law specifically, back in the States, Washburn University. There you go, Ichabods. And I remember this case, and if I remember correctly, I believe it was Con Law 1. It might have been, I think it was Con Law 1. It was Con Law 1. In fact, I'm Professor Rich, Con Law 1, correct. There was a case in that course we went through wherein, if I recall correctly, I think it was a case involving New Hampshire or Connecticut or Vermont, where basically the state had gotten into the cement business, if I recall. In any event, the holding of the case was when the government, in an American context, when the government engages in commerce directly, and governments can, through various means, they can end up sort of being in private business, for lack of a better term, in the United States. Again, and I'll get to the analogy to Thailand here in a minute, but this is U.S. analysis for the moment. There is a different analysis with regard to things like privileges and immunities and things of this nature if the state is an actor. The reason I bring that up is I'm not saying the state, I'm not saying those same regulations or anything should apply here in Thailand. It was just the notion of the state becoming the actor with regard to casinos. Because the more I've been thinking of this, the more I realize that maybe going the Western model of just having like these private casinos and then they're regulated by the state, maybe that's not the way to go. And what are we talking about? Well, I got to thinking about it, and I started thinking to myself, what happens if here in Thailand they started up, let's say they legalized gambling, and then they started up a program where the state trained dealers, where the state trained slot technicians. It would move through like a government trade school. You go to a trade school for casino, travel and casino sort of services training, okay? Now, this is going to be different than your standard hospitality training, although I expect it probably, dovetails standard hospitality training. But anybody that's ever worked in a casino knows it's a totally different animal. I worked as a dealer for years. I had friends that worked in the casino as like waiters and waitresses, which, by the way, some days they would do better than us on the floor. Not every day and not most days, but every once in a while they'd beat us. But like they would look over at us and they'd say, "I don't even know what you're doing over there." It's like, yeah, you don't, because you have to be trained for this stuff. Look, training these are skill sets that are very portable, and they're not unlucrative. They don't lack a certain amount of these skill sets don't lack financial benefits. Okay, if you're a journeyman dealer, if you can deal blackjack, baccarat, poker, roulette, and you've been at it a year and a half, you can do that. It's like riding a bike. You can deal I remember dealing blackjack. The first 6 weeks is hell on wheels. You have you have literal blackjack dreams, okay, when you're learning, because it's stressful. You're learning to deal it. You have players that have money on the line. You got the box man behind you watching every little thing when you're new. That first 6 weeks is rough, but once you have it, that's a skill set that will walk with you, that will go with you wherever you go around the world. I don't think it's in any way shameful for perhaps the state to engage in training people at this level. Then the question becomes, well, to what end? This is the point. I think Thailand, if you will, I think it's worth exploring. Let me put it this way. Thailand becoming the casino. Now, what do we mean by that? What I'm saying is, instead of designating casino complexes that only in these areas can this be done, what if folks were trained through the state, and then each individual vendor out there can apply for their own license with the state, and then the state provides the employees so that they can be sure to get their cut of the tax money. You got people from ground up that are going to be disinclined to operate against the state. They'll be trained by them. And then when you go get and there should be a spectrum of licenses. If you own a major casino complex, you're the Avani or you're JW Marriott or something here, and you say, hey, I want to go apply for a license. We got a big hotel complex here. We could fit a casino in, no problem. I want to go apply for a license. And let's say that particular facility wants to have 10 gaming tables and 50 slot machines or something of this nature. Again, I'm just throwing out numbers. But let's say that they did. And they go to the government, they ask for a license. Well, that license is going to be a very different license than perhaps a little bar and grill that wants to go get a license to have, say, poker. Just a one-table license to put on a poker game. That's going to be a different license. But when you apply for the license, you have to pay these people a salary, but the state sends them as part of the licensing process. The state then sends them in, and they work as, if you will, state contractors. They're like independent contractors within your business, technical proficiency, if you will, technicians, if you will, who are providing these casino services. That's their function. You pay them through this, there's some sort of state apparatus where you pay them sort of a fixed amount to the state. They get their salary from the state. They get state benefits. It's part of the pay-in. They can also work for tips or not. Make the policy. Decide if that's what we want to have in Thailand. My personal opinion is better dealers are tipped. So it's probably a good idea to allow them to keep their tips. But who cares if they do? They're operating independently. They're not making money. They're not trying to make money off the house. Nobody's trying to avoid taxation. It creates a very neutral individual to put on those services. But the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't single anybody out. It doesn't end up being unequal benefits to folks because there's only one casino complex. No, it would be across the board. Again, I would see a spectrum of different kind of licenses. If you want to go in and get a one card table, like poker table license, they'll send you in dealers, designate somebody that has to be trained through the state apparatus, and then you have that person there, you pay them through the state, and that all goes through your licensing. Those people go ahead and then are on the ground reporting back regarding the practices of the intake and the revenue associated with the gambling so that there can be no skim, so that the government can get its cut. But more importantly, it's creating jobs, it's fair across the board, and these are jobs with the skill set that give Thais upward mobility in an internationally portable sense. Okay, if you're a Thai national that can speak Thai and English, and you're a proficient table games dealer, croupier, you can go around the world with that skill set. And you have 2 languages under your belt. If you've got 3, if you've got like Chinese, Thai, and English, and you can deal the spectrum of games on a gambling floor, you can go anywhere. I'm here to tell you, Vegas, Macau, South America, Monaco, you speak a Southeast Asian language, Chinese and English, you're going to write your own ticket. You know, you're going to make money. It's work. It's a job, but it's a good job. So I've been thinking about this, and I think maybe our paradigm to date regarding the idea of gambling in Thailand is off. I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all solution, but I think it's a solution nobody's really looked at, and I'm hopeful that it's at least considered by lawmakers and policymakers here in the Kingdom of Thailand.